Welcome to Good Day Stories, where strategy meets art. I'm your host, Gail Hataitham, founder of Good Day Creative Studio. In this season, we're exploring the theme Small Team, Big Impact, how lean, passionate teams create lasting change in their communities. In each episode, I sit down with changemakers from across Canada's nonprofit world to uncover how they achieve big results with limited resources. This podcast is here to help you share your story with more clarity, creativity, and confidence. Today, I'm excited to be joined by Rachel Nadler. Rachel is a communication advisor at Center of Sexuality, where she leads communications and marketing across digital platforms, events, and the organization's website. Her work supports the center's mission to normalize sexual health and help people build healthy bodies, relationships, and communities. She's known for translating complex values-driven work into clear, approachable storytelling, bringing a strategic system-oriented lens shaped by her earlier career in oil and gas. Rachel, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for that intro.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to digging into your work and your personal journey. So to start us off, can you tell us a bit about your role at Center for Sexuality and what your day-to-day actually looks like?
Sure. So I've been in my role for about 3 years now, and it's kind of a two-pronged role. So on one hand, I report to our CEO, and a large part of what I do is supporting our strategic initiatives for the entire center. So understanding our strategic priorities as an organization and how communications and marketing can help us achieve our broader objectives, like building healthy environments, strengthening community action, growing our brand, or growing our donations for long-term sustainability. So that's one piece. And then on the other hand, I'm basically a service department for our staff of about 40 people. We've got a lot of teams working in youth programming, gender-specific programming, doing DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion workshops in professional settings. We do research, we do community engagement, we work with parents. We have a very large umbrella of services. So each of those teams needs help raising awareness and marketing for all of those offerings that they have for their specific audiences. So I work with those different teams to better understand what their needs are and ensure that the tactics we're using are aligning with the center's broader strategic vision. So with that, I'm responsible for everything. I'm a team of one, like you're talking about small team. I am the smallest team. I'm responsible for everything from high level strategy and planning down to the execution of every social post, every blog, every website update. But that's good for me because I love variety. And luckily that means no 2 days are the same, which is great.
Wow, it seems like you're juggling with a lot of moving pieces in your role.
Yes, totally. Yeah.
Pretty exciting and also could be overwhelming at the same time, I suppose.
It can be. I think it takes a certain kind of personality, right? I love being a generalist and, knowing a lot about a lot of different things. Some people would prefer to specialize and maybe this wouldn't be great for them, but I love being able to switch it up and having that variety day to day.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you are communicating about big, sometimes awkward topic like sexual health, consent, and identity. What's the most surprising thing that you've learned about how people actually want to talk about this stuff?
So the core of what we do is always education, right? Giving people factual, non-judgmental information to help them make the right decisions for them. Going in, I knew that approach to sexual health and relationship education, that comprehensive sex ed has better health outcomes. I knew that. What I didn't know, and what the research also shows, is that youth, which is a huge part of who we work with and who we serve, they really do want to hear from trusted adults in their lives, like their parents, about sex, sexuality, relationships, how to build healthy relationships, about sexual health, because the facts that we provide are just part of the equation, like how that information fits into someone's personality, value system, their goals for the future, that all comes primarily from family, right? So that's not how a lot of people grew up. So it's a new thing for a lot of parents, modeling that honesty and that openness and kind of going back again and again, even though these conversations can be a little awkward, a little scary. Sometimes they don't go the way you think they're going to go, but it has a huge impact on the young people in their lives and how they approach relationships and even friendships throughout life. So that's something that surprised me, and it really impacts how we work with youth and adults alike.
It surprised me too.
Yeah.
I thought that it's so awkward for parents to talk about this to their kids, especially I didn't grow up learning that stuff from my parents either, and kind of hard to go about it, right? And I guess you're talking about educating the parents to be able to communicate the information to the children. So that seems pretty powerful and probably how it's supposed to be anyway.
Yeah, and that it has implications beyond just those conversations, right? It positions you, the parent, as this safe space for your child to ask any question, and that you can have some tough or awkward or weird conversations, but still come back again and again. It's not just a one and done, and that can impact what your child continues to return to you for advice about throughout their life.
It's true. And it's important for our parents to understand and feel comfortable to talk about those things too, because like if you only rely on the kids to learn from other sources, it's just not enough.
No, definitely not, especially with, what the internet is these days and everyone having a phone in their pocket. Parents need to get in there and get in there early. So we definitely help them with that.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, because you're doing so many different things, how do you choose what to focus on? With like the website, the social, the campaigns, the education part, how do you choose what to pay attention to first when everything just seems so important?
I mean, that's the eternal struggle, right? I think it's not just a nonprofit thing. I think everybody in a lot of professions struggles with this. What I have found works for me, like the first step is just being very purposeful with my time. So doing some like Cal Newport style time blocking so that I know exactly what is happening each day, doing kind of a shutdown at the end of every day and looking at the day ahead or the week ahead so that I know what's coming and I can kind of minimize those surprises. They inevitably happen, but trying to minimize that. So things like social admin and like website and those kind of admin tasks get recurring spots every week. If someone asks something of me or needs something from me, that gets a time block in my calendar, even if it's weeks or months in the future. So it helps me understand what's coming up and avoid panic, but it also helps me be transparent with my colleagues and our leadership team and people who need things from me about just how much I'm balancing and why things might take a long time, right? That sometimes communication marketing jobs look kind of easy and chill, and you see someone like scrolling on their phone and it seems like, what do they really have going on? But being open and showing my calendar and what I have coming up to people really helps them understand how their work fits into everything else that I'm juggling. And that sometimes, especially with seasonal ebbs and flows, like for example, with Calgary Pride at the end of August, and we have our primary fundraiser for Camp Firefly for queer youth, which we run in Kananaskis. People just know I have limited capacity around those times. So really being transparent helps people work with me when they're waiting on stuff. That being said, like sometimes the website breaks and that's my day. Or, our CEO needs something from me and other things have to get bumped. Not everything can go to plan all the time, but I find that using that time blocking and being really transparent have gone a long way to avoiding burnout for me.
I think that's a great strategy, and be able to balancing everyone's expectation because you're the team of one.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, luckily, the way that the center operates, like people are very understanding, but also I've, put some tools in place. I have a request form. There are things that I do so that it becomes part of people's process to involve me early. So I know something's happening in a couple months and that I might be needed in a couple of months. And that's okay. It's when you're brought in at the end as communications, which so often happens, that it can become a fire that you have to put out. But, I work with great people and they understand my process and it helps them too. It helps them plan better and market their stuff better in the end.
I love that. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. So I know that you're great at translating complex values, heavy work into clear messaging. When things start getting muddy, how do you simplify without watering the work down?
So I think especially in the work that the center does, we do so much work around sexual orientation, gender identity, these things where especially the language around it is always evolving. So there's always a push and pull between being very inclusive and being very clear, right? I think especially as a mission-driven organization, we really want to share all this nuanced knowledge that we have. But if you try to account for every single possibility and every single nuance and every single variation, you're inevitably going to stop being clear. And that's not that helpful for people. So always going back to, okay, I'm creating something for an audience. Who is this audience? And not just what do they want to know, but what might they be feeling? What might they be excited about? What might they be afraid of? What are the things that might be standing in their way to engaging our services or taking some positive steps for their sexual health or their relationship. So that's a simple, like, it's kind of an elementary thing, thinking about your audience, but I find bringing it back there all the time stops us from getting bogged down with all of that nuance that we're dying to share, because there is a time and place for all those different pieces.
Yeah, I think that's the key. Know who you're talking to and be able to craft the message, especially for those group of people, because everyone receives things different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And understanding where the different audiences are, because not everybody is in the same place. And when we're thinking about youth, parents, families, professionals, healthcare providers, the 2S LGBTQ plus community, like, they're not necessarily all getting their information from the same places. So where are they? What do they want? What might be holding them back from taking some positive steps or from taking advantage of an offering that we have? And understanding that every little piece is for one audience. We're not trying to be everything to everyone with everything that we do.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That's really important. So before we get into your personal journey, so I'm wondering, like, do people need to get referrals to access your programs, or it's open to everyone?
It's open. So, like I said before, we have, like, such a huge umbrella of services. But no, we don't need referrals. So, for example, like, we do STI testing on site at our offices a few times a week. You don't need a referral for that. We offer short-term supportive counseling and education. Don't need a referral for that. So we try to reduce barriers to entry and access to our services as much as possible. Some programs are for specific populations, and we make that really clear. But yeah, we try and reduce the red tape and get people the services that they need and that they benefit from as quick as they can.
Sounds great. So let's get into your personal journey. So you went from oil and gas to sexual health nonprofits. That's not a usual path.
No, it's not.
So what made you make that jump? And, like, what surprises you most about the differences between working in corporate and nonprofit communications?
Yeah, so I was at my very first employer right out of school in oil and gas for almost 8 years. That was the first part of my career. What spurred me to make the jump was, honestly, had been volunteering for a few years in animal welfare. I got my first rescue dog in 2014 and I felt inspired. And so I was volunteering with these organizations and getting that sense of, satisfaction and impact. And I started to crave that in my day job, that I wanted that to take up more of my life. So I made the decision to make the jump and take the pay cut and the change and all of that. And I went to the Calgary Food Bank in 2019. And then from there, I went to Meow Foundation, which is a Calgary cat rescue. And then I've been at the center now for 3 years. Totally happy with the change. I would highly recommend for people who can make it work for them. It's made a huge difference. And just, because work impacts how you feel about the rest of your life. So it's been great. And my corporate experience has actually served me really well in the nonprofit world. There are ways they're not that different, because at the end of the day, it is just writing for an audience and creating stuff for a specific audience. That doesn't change. I would say the main difference is the level of process and the level of rigor. So when you're a publicly traded company of, over 15,000 people across many cities in different countries, you know exactly where the line is. They have process around everything, that there's a lot of clarity around what you should and should not be doing. Not as common in a nonprofit environment where so many people wear so many different hats and everyone is just doing what they need to do to get the work done. It's not to say that it can't be done. Like, there have been different levels of process at different nonprofits I've been involved in, both paid and unpaid. But if you're trying to bring some of that rigor around branding, process, brand voice, which I have tried to do, you have to kind of bring people along that journey with you to help them understand why that consistency matters, why it should be you if they've done it in the past, that you have to bring people along that change journey, because even positive wanted change is disruptive. So you've got to bring people along with you for that. So that's what I would say, just the level of process, but that's not to say that it can't be done in nonprofit. You can make it work.
And you were mentioning brand consistency and messaging and all that, like, because it does involve a lot of different people in the organization to carry the message as well. Like, how do you keep that consistency in the organization?
It's a few things. I think, one-to-one conversations have helped a lot. And now that I've been there for a long time and people know me and I have my bearings and everything, having those conversations and always bringing it back. So when we're thinking about what tactics we're going to use for something, or if we want to market something, always bringing it back to, does this align with the strategic goals of the organization? Like, how are we really helping out here? And also just building some processes. So for example, I made a little page on our SharePoint for communications where it has all of our templates, all of our color codes, it has the font that we use, it has all our brand assets, like making it really self-serve. And that when people have any questions, that's kind of the place that they go to find the information or the product or the thing that they need. I find that has helped a lot, and it just takes time and practice to change how people do things. But I think people do understand the importance of it.
Definitely. Thank you. So for the center, when goal is to create trust and culture change, how do you personally know when communications are actually working?
I mean, any communications person or marketer will tell you like the metrics are changing all the time. It's one of the charms of our industry. So you change what you focus on every once in a while. But what I've been focused on recently, especially in terms of building that trust and credibility, is social shares. It used to be that you wanted people to like or comment or engage directly with your post, but people aren't really doing that as much. It's all about what goes on in the DMs. Like I don't like nearly as many posts as I used to. My friends and I are just DMing things to each other constantly. So if I see that a post of ours is getting a lot of shares, that lets me know, first of all, that the content is resonating with people, but more than that, that they want to share it with their circle. They think it's useful. They want to recommend it to someone. They think it could be helpful for someone that they know. So that's a really good and simple indicator of how much people trust us and think we know what we're talking about. As for like the longer term culture change, that's like a really long arc, especially in our line of work. It's really tough right now. It's hard not to feel disheartened with everything going on in the world near and far. What gives me, and I think others in the organization, the sense that people are listening and that we're making a difference is one-to-one interactions that you don't always expect. So, a parent telling us that our website helped them navigate their child coming out, or
Right.
that they recommended information that we had to their kids' grandparents so that the grandparents could understand, the language and what this youth was even talking about their identity. A more training center client describing the changes on their team since we've done a workshop with them. Those are things that really make a difference to us, like the people who are doing the work. But then my communications brain is like, get a testimonial, have them write it down so that we can share that impact with other people. Because again, there's that social proof and people recommending us and building that trust and credibility organically. So it's a long road, but that's what we focus on. And especially when things are tough, to keep us going, understanding that human impact that we're having.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I heard from a lot of nonprofits too. It's the feedback from the people in the community. It's the small impacts that you can create in everyone's lives that affected by your programs and stuff like that. That's kind of like the measurement of your impact and your success, which is just
Yeah.
really, really valuable.
Yeah, and I mean, for us, we hope that translates into broader social
Mhm.
and cultural and societal change. That's our goal. Is we want a society where sexual health is normalized and people are free to be themselves and that they have the information that they need. But in the meantime, yeah, I'm happy when I hear from people and I know that it's just growing little by little.
Yeah, it is a long road. So, what's something that you've learned the hard way in nonprofit communications that you wish more people talk about openly?
I think people do talk openly about the fact that like your job is just going to be a few different jobs like duct taped together. I think people know that, but in case they don't, I'll say it for the people now. Especially with the current funding landscape in nonprofit, there is just not enough budget for people to have even a small marketing team. So people need to be comfortable. Comfortable. I mean, I think there's freedom in that you can take a bit of a risk or you can try something you never tried before. Like, I think there's something freeing in that. But I think, like we talked about at the beginning, it takes a certain personality and you have to be okay with that. I think this is true, not just nonprofit specific, but communicators and marketers. Like, we also have to prove our value internally within our organization, in addition to proving the value of like the product or service or whatever we're offering to our audience. Because, like I said, like from outside, the job kind of looks fun and like maybe a little easy, maybe a little chill. You walk past someone's office and like the social media manager is scrolling on their phone and like, couldn't anyone do that? But they don't see the strategy and the planning that goes into making those things work and making it look breezy. So there's always, I feel that I always need to show my value internally as well. And it's not just for show. I want to be doing a good job and I want to make sure that I'm, moving our programs forward. But I think all communicators struggle with that a little bit.
So, thank you so much for sharing your time and perspective with us today. I
Yeah, thank
really
you for having
appreciate,
me.
Yeah, I really appreciate how openly you talk about the realities of like working in nonprofit communications and like try to keep the balance between, having the quality and like self-care and the impact of the work. I can tell that you really enjoy. You really love your job.
Yeah. Yeah. And, for anybody who's thinking about it, there are things you have to do to make it work for you, but it's so, so rewarding.
Yeah, and it's clear that you do bring a lot of intention and attention to details to like work and of like translating this complex and often sensitive topics into making it clear messaging for people to connect and build trust. It's not simple like you said. It seems simple, but no, it's a lot of thinking, a lot of strategy, a lot of hard work behind it, and appreciate that. So, for the listeners, if you like to learn more about Rachel's work or the incredible programs at Center of Sexuality, I'll make sure to link everything in the show notes for you. And if this conversation resonated with you, I love it if you could follow or subscribe or share it with your community. It helps amplify these impactful stories. And that's a wrap on another good story. Until next time, keep making stories worth sharing. Bye. Thanks, Gail.